My name is Ben and I'm a current student here at Macquarie University. So this session, we're going to be covering the Master of Management. And today I'm joined by Dr. Rob Jack, who is the course director of the Master of Management here at Macquarie University. We're also joined today by Mr. Shane Allison, who is the CEO and co-founder of Public Address. So I'm going to now hand over to Dr. Rob Jack to give an overview of the program.
Thanks very much, Ben. Welcome, everyone. I'll just give you a little bit of background to myself before we start. I've been at Macquarie University I've been at Macquarie University now for 10 years. I've been in this current role for around about a year. Previously, I was the program director for the Masters of International Business. And within the domain of management, or the subject area of management, that is really my area of expertise or speciality. And within the program itself, I teach one of the core units, which is managing globally. Now, the real focus of this particular degree is that it is designed specifically to fast track an individual's managerial development or an individual's managerial expertise. It's very much focused on recent graduates and those who would define themselves as early career professionals. So we have a large number of students that enter the program who have only recently graduated from undergraduate degrees of various types. Some of them are from a business background, some of them from arts, some of them from science. So we get a large diversity of undergraduate expertise within the program. And the program is designed, apart from the basic emphasis around learning managerial skills, it has a very strong experiential learning process in it. And I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in the next couple of slides. So it's very much a balance between what is considered traditional learning about management skills and management expertise, and particularly focused more on the idea of experimental learning, which occurs a little bit later in the program. Now, there is a variety of structural options for the degree, depending on an individual student's academic background and depending on their own professional background. So if students do the full standard degree, they're looking at a 2-year program, which is divided up into some foundation units, the core units, which are compulsory over all the different structure options, and elective units as well. Now, there are options, again, depending on your academic expertise, your undergraduate specializations, and perhaps any professional expertise that you may have, where you can actually shorten the program. So there are options, for argument's sake, that students who come from an undergraduate background in commerce or business, they may not be required to do the foundation units, and they can go straight into the core units and have essentially an 18-month or year-and-a-half degree. At the other extreme, perhaps students have come from a background more in the science, engineering, arts, perhaps even education, undergraduate specializations where they may have to do the foundation units, but they may not be required to do any elective units. For those students who do qualify for the 1-year option, where they're just doing the core units, that's a combination of the relevant undergraduate academic expertise that you have and also your professional background. So there are options there in relation to various structures that may be open to you when you actually do enroll in the degree. Now, I'll go through some of the basic elements of the program, and this is pretty straightforward, and you can see this on the relevant websites, which I've got some links to. What I want to emphasize here is very much this balance between the exclusive nature of the degree and the diversity of the degree. The exclusive nature of the degree is really in the core units because they are very specific to the program. They're not shared with other programs, which I think is very important. And there is a wide option of diversity available in terms of the electives that you may want to choose if you do have to do electives within the program. A lot of the program as it currently exists is relatively new, meaning that some of the focus of the individual subjects have been reconfigured and have just recently been launched in the 2020-21 program. So these are the foundation units. As I said, some students who who are graduates from undergraduate programs don't necessarily have to do these foundation units. They can get exemptions for them, but they're designed to give foundation expertise across marketing, analytics, finance, and human resource components. The next element is the core units. Now, the core units are exclusive to the Masters of Management. So when you do these core units, it's only Masters of Management students who are enrolled in these units. These units are not shared with any other degree programs across the university. No matter what structure of the Masters of Management that you take, you will have to do these core units. And you can see that they're based around both organisational focus and individual focus, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. I will emphasise the professional practice unit in the last couple of slides, because that is very much aligned with the experiential element of the degree, which we've looked at a little bit in the introduction. So what I've done here is just done a simple division to try and show you the balance of these core units. You can see that there are 4 core units that are very much focused on issues regarding elements of organisational development. And there are 3 units that are very much focused on personal growth and individual management development. So learning to be a leader, learning to be persuasive, and the idea of professional practice is very much focused on the individual, as well as change management, managing globally, strategically, and technology is very much focused on the organisation or the firm. So you get that important balance between the two. Specifically, what we're looking at here is a bit of a breakdown between the core units as they relate to organisational development. What we emphasise a lot in this degree is that there is a focus across a diversity of organisations. So with those units that are specifically focused on organisational development, we're not just focused on large established organisations, which are relevant to some students. Many students are interested in being involved or even establishing smaller entrepreneurial type firms. And also many students are actually involved in family firms. They might be managing family firms, or they might be seeking to take over family firms in the future. So what you get in the core units that are specifically related to organisational development is a lot of diversity around the type and format of the organisation itself. So it's not just focused entirely or exclusively on large organisations. The unit of professional practice is very unique. It is the final unit that students do in their program, and it focuses on applying everything that a student has learnt to a real world organisation. So over the semesters, we have a number of organisations that participate in the professional practice unit. It's run alongside these organisations, so they participate in it throughout the semester. In first semester, we had Ernst & Young as the participant client collaborating in this unit, but we've had a very wide diversity of organisations that participate in this. Some smaller firms, some not-for-profit organisations, charities, government agencies, etc. Just a couple of broad things to finish off. One thing to be aware of is the Master of Management students are allowed to participate in Macquarie University's Global Leadership Program. This is very popular with many Masters of Management students, and it gives them the opportunity to develop some of their broader individual skills around leadership, around cross-cultural management, and it's very much supportive of the idea of future global leaders and developing future global leaders as they come out of this degree. Just to finish off, Macquarie University, the business school has recently developed a career and employability strategy, which will involve the Masters of Management degree. This will directly impact in the professional practice unit. So you'll see that unit be more involved in real world or real life organisational issues, which students will be able to participate in. There's also a number of career service support mechanisms that are available to Masters of Management student, and this is just a list. and contact details of where this can apply, because many Masters of Management students, this is important in terms of what they can achieve when they complete their degree and where they want their career to head in that direction. So there's a number of support mechanisms that are available for Masters of Management students across the business school and across the university. And at the same time, we're getting an enormous amount of emphasis on our new careers and employability strategy. So over the course of 2021 and 2022, there will be more opportunities for this strategy to be integrated in other core units of the program. And hopefully you found that interesting and relevant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. Rob Jack, for going through the program and giving us a great overview. I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Shane Allison, who I introduced before as the CEO and co-founder of Public Address. Thank you, Shane.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that introduction, Ben, and great to hear about the evolution and the continued progress that's being made on the Master of Management program. I'm a Master of Management graduate myself. I graduated from the program in 2017, and it was an amazing experience which has enabled me to propel my career forward, launch my own business, and generally just advance my professional standing in the profession of communications, which I work in. I actually jumped nearly straight into the Master of Management from completing a Bachelor of Business Administration. So in 2014, I graduated from Macquarie University. And then in 2015, I took a wander down that path, which you might be familiar with if you've been to Macquarie University. The Macquarie Business School is just down the path there, and started a Master of Management. The Master of Management really attracted me because of its focus on bringing some real applicable professional skills, which I'll be able to take into the workplace and apply directly to some of the work that I was doing, and use that to advance my career. At the time, I was working as a mid-level manager at Cefiani Communications, a public relations firm in the Sydney CBD, but always had ambitions to go further and to take my career in leaps and bounds, not just kind of that slow meandering growth that you sometimes have in your career. So I enrolled in the Master of Management and then was able to directly apply a lot of that learning thanks to the really great professional experience that the Master of Management brought in terms of real life case studies, examples, situations that the lecturers have been in, guest lecturers, to bring some really practical business knowledge to the work that I was doing. That helped me in two ways. One, I was consulting. It meant that when I was sitting down with a client and they were talking about a business issue, whether it was a balance sheet, whether it was a change, whether it's leadership, people, culture, I had a really deep grounding. And so I was able to have a chat to the CEO on the same level as someone who'd had another 15, 20 years in the profession and had an MBA or another qualification. I was able to have that conversation at the same level. I understood the frameworks, the ways of thinking, and how to run an organization, thanks to the Master of Management program. But what really I had a deep passion for, and still have a deep passion for, is building businesses. And so the second thing that the Master of Management was able to do for me was to help me grow the Cefiani Communications business. It meant that I was able to sit down with the managing director and have a conversation about our profit and loss statement, the strategies that we're using, future growth, the strategy for growth, and really contribute to that business in a way that I wasn't able to without the Master of Management training. It's great to hear Dr. Jack talking before about the organizational development side and the focus of those core units on organizational development, because that's what I was able to bring into Cefiani Communications, was a focus on how we could develop the organization, the skills, the strategies, the tactics, the nuts and bolts of building an organization for success. And the fact that I was able to bring that into Cefiani Communications and, pipe up in meetings and say, what if we tried this? Or what if we tried this? Or, this is a great way that another organization has encountered a similar problem to what we've encountered, and then they've been able to solve it by applying this technique. And through doing that, it meant that I was able to completely accelerate my career at Cefiani Communications. I was able to push I was able to grow. And I think I don't have an exact number for it. I don't think anyone ever does, but I think I doubled or tripled the pace of my career growth through undertaking that Master of Management and then bringing it into the workplace. I went from being a mid-manager to part of the senior leadership team within 6 months of starting the Master of Management. And then by the time that I left the agency to start my own business, I was one of the top performers in billings and revenue and in terms of the accounts and clients which I managed, and making a significant contribution to the organisation's future growth and success. As I mentioned before, building businesses has always been a big part of what I wanted to do. And so the Master of Management has also helped me launch my entrepreneurial career. In 2018, I left Cefiani Communications and started Public Address. Public Address is a journalist relationship management platform. Think of it like Salesforce or a customer relationship management platform, which you learn all about in one of the marketing or customer units at when you do a Master of Management, but for media relations and for public relations. What was really transformational in me being able to to start Public Address and the connection through to the Master of Management program was really that through the Master of Management program, I actually now understand how businesses work. I think a lot of businesses fail, and especially a lot of entrepreneurs fail because they don't actually spend the time to think about how does a business work? How does it operate? What does my balance sheet need to look like? What goals do I need to achieve to break even and to actually grow my business? What's my sales strategy? What's my marketing strategy? What's my product development strategy? As an entrepreneur, you juggle 10, 15, 20 different hats every day. And you need to know enough about all of those areas to be really effective in each of those areas when you need to focus on it. And so through the Master of Management program, you go through every single part of how a business operates, and you're able to be an expert in that field and apply that knowledge on your entrepreneurial journey. What that means is that Public Address has been able to grow and scale in a way that it wouldn't have been able to if I had not had this experience and this qualification. That every day I turn up and I look, first of all, how's my P&L looking? Am I going to be pushing forward and am I surviving and thriving? Secondly, I'm looking at my product management life cycle. How is my product evolving and changing, and how is that linked through to my customer needs and my demands? How's my marketing program evolving? How is my future growth strategy and international expansion strategy evolving? And it really means that you actually understand how all of those pieces fit together. I talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs who do struggle with that piece. How does my customer success strategy fit in with my balance sheet? Well, actually, those two things, if your customers are staying with you, your balance sheet is a lot stronger because you're booking a lot more forward-looking revenue and you've got a lot more confidence about your continued operations. And I think more than anything else, that ability to connect all of those pieces together has been what has enabled Public Address to survive and thrive. Whereas if I didn't have that management experience and I didn't have the Master of Management behind me, backing me, then I would be completely stuck. And I'll finish with one final shout out for anyone who's watching this because they want to become an entrepreneur. You definitely need to do the entrepreneurial finance class. This is an example of one of those specialist units which you can take. And the entrepreneurial finance class is an amazing way to get into the nuts and bolts of understanding how an entrepreneurial organization works and how you can grow, how you can set your business up for success and growth. It applies equally for someone who, as Dr. Jack mentioned earlier, might be in a family-owned business and looking to set that up for growth, or someone who's looking to grow their own business. And it is an amazing program and just one of those highlights of the Master of Management experience.
Thank you very much, Shane. It was a great opportunity for students looking in and interested in what they might do with this Master of Management and hear about your experiences. So thank you very much. We're now going to move on to a session of this webinar where I'm going to ask some questions from a student's perspective. and get some of your ideas and kind of answers to some of these questions. So you guys ready to go?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And fantastic. So the first question I've got here is, so some people would question the benefits of pursuing a postgraduate degree, and they kind of claim that management is more of a experience field. So they go out and do it rather than a degree. What would you guys say to that?
I think that what is emphasised in postgraduate degrees in management now, particularly Macquarie's Masters of Management, is that it is a balance. So increasingly what we're doing is, and particularly with the career employability strategy, is integrating more field experience into the units beyond the professional practice unit. So the professional practice unit is quite important because it's the final unit that students do, and it carries a large part of their credit points. And it's essentially field experience within a classroom, if that makes sense. So it does involve a professional partner. As I said, in first semester, it was Ernst & Young, and there's been a number of very high profile companies that have participated in the professional practice unit. And essentially it exposes students to that field experience, which is so essential to what they'll do essentially the following few months when they go back into the workforce.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's funny actually. When I was lucky enough to be accepted into the Master of Management program, the employer that I was with when I was accepted didn't see the value of me doing that training and wasn't willing to be flexible to accommodate me taking on full-time study and an 80% part-time work. And so I actually went and got a job with Cefiani, and they implicitly understood the benefits of having someone bring that management training, that management experience back into the organisation. And, I'd like to say, I think they would say as well that they benefited from that management experience coming in. I think it's a bit of faff that, you can't pick up management experience as an early career professional. Absolutely. Management experience that you can pick up through a postgraduate program is exactly what is going to propel you forward. It means that you can actually have an informed conversation with other senior managers, which they've taken 10, 15, 20 years to learn the hard way. You're doing in a couple of years the short way.
Absolutely. I love that your experience over the last few years is able to speak to that as well. So I think that's really useful. I've got a second question here. So there's ongoing discussions about whether a management degree should be completed early on as a starting point for the skill sets as we've talked about, or whether doing an MBA after say 5 or 10 years of work is better. What do you see as some thoughts on the right solution for different individuals?
Maybe if I can jump in with that one, I think, I did a Master of Management a year after graduating from my undergraduate. A lot of people, and I think I just said, thought that was too early, too quick, too soon. I don't think it's an either or question. I've done a Master of Management, and in 5-10 years, I'll probably be doing an MBA. I'm actually set up to do a Masters of Commercial Law because that's an area that I'm really interested in. It's really important as a small business owner to understand the law better. I think it's not really a barrier to say, one or the other, or, you've only got one MBA and your careers are now 45, 50 years long. You need to be continuously upskilling, and people who have done an MBA 20 years ago now, well, that MBA is out of date. They probably need to do another one. So I think it's, I appreciate that people do look at it that way, but I just think it's not an either or trade-off. It's the right training for the right time at the right point in your career.
Yeah, I think that one thing that is sometimes used as perhaps as a criticism of a Masters of Management degree is that it's sometimes somewhat dismissed as a generalist degree. But this is actually its huge strength for students that are coming out of an undergraduate specialisation. And of course, the undergraduate specialisations graduates that we get is very broad. So we're not just getting, commerce graduates, we're getting science, engineering, sometimes even education graduates from arts faculties. And they're recognising that they're going to be put into, let's call them professional roles where they will have some degree of managerial responsibility fairly early in their careers. So having that balance of knowledge between, as Shane beautifully explained in his overview about the organisational value of learning versus the individual value of learning. This gives them a much stronger scope when they go back in the workforce and then perhaps decide later on that they do need something more specific depending on how their career actually grows and focuses. So there's a lot of value for having the broad managerial knowledge that you get in an MOM coming immediately after your undergraduate experience.
Great, thanks to both of you for your answers there. The next question I've got is, so we've talked a lot about practical experience being a major thing that employers look for. So what are some of your advice on multitasking in terms of doing a degree and doing some work experience or working full or part-time? What's your advice on balancing that?
I think, I'm slightly crazy. I just do it all at the same time. But I think it is really useful to be able to go in and, even if you're working part-time in, a really junior role, to be able to go in and apply some of that thinking. And you can also use that in a lot of the students that I graduated with were really good at, more observational learning. So, they might have been working part-time in a service role or a retail role to support their studies. But at the same time, they were able to look at the workplace around them and see how the thinking and the strategies, which they were picking up in the Master of Management, were being applied in their workplace. So I think you can achieve that balance. I think I was working 4 days. I was studying full time and working 4 days a week when I was going through. So it's certainly something that if you're committed and engaged and just want to knock it over full time, you can fit that around your other studies. But equally, if you really want to focus on the Master of Management experience, there's some great opportunities to work part-time and study. And the thing which I'd say is have a chat to your boss about it. The first boss that I talked about it didn't see the value in it, and I found another job and they saw the value in it. Your manager is more likely today than ever before to see the value in a Master of Management and see the value of having you have that skills and bring that back into your role. So have a chat. They might be happy for you to work part-time. Thanks to COVID, we're all more flexible than ever. We're doing this virtually from our homes. Definitely give it a go. Have a chat to your boss, and you never know what they'll say.
Yeah, I think just adding a little bit to what Shane has said is that I've been surprised how many students that I've had in the MOM who are doing, let's call it part-time work that they wouldn't regard as ongoing once they finish the degree. So they're doing something part-time, which gives them an additional income. It's probably fairly straightforward work. It's something that is they would probably be doing part-time if they're an undergraduate student. And yet they have said quite often, it's amazing how many opportunities they've seen, even within that environment, of applying what they've learnt through the continuation of their studies. So I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah, so thank you to both for your contributions there. Just a couple more questions to wrap up on. So we know the workforce is a lot more mobile these days, so people are seeking opportunities for career switches, maybe even multiple times through their career. What are some of the transferable skills that you think are necessary to operate through these career switches?
I think that's for you, Shane.
Oh, sorry, that's for me. I'll jump in on that one. No, I think the beauty of the Master of Management program, and not to harp on too much about it, but those core skills really are those, immediately transferable skills which you need across the entire life cycle of your career. It sounds incredibly boring, but the ability to read a balance sheet, read a profit and loss statement, and understand how cash flows around an organization and actually enables that organization to survive, thrive, and grow is a timeless skill. That is not going out of fashion. That is, you learn that once, and absolutely there will be advances in how we think about that, but you learn that once and that's a set for life kind of skill set. The other thing that, really is completely transferable across no matter what skill, what technical field that you're in, is the ability to manage people and manage organisation, culture, change. And that's a big focus of all of those units, is the ability to manage the people around you, to lead and to lead effectively. There's, you know, a big difference between someone who can lead effectively and someone who can't. And the focus on leadership in that program means that you're able to really grow and finesse that skill. And it's something which traditionally, you know, it's another one of those skills which people think, oh, the only way that you can learn to lead is through leading. No, they're absolutely not. You know, there's a reason that there's an entire field of study around people, culture, and leadership, because you can learn from other people who are leading. And the final thing that I'd say is transferable, and probably maybe the most important skill that you pick up through a Master of Management program is the flexibility and the skill set to adapt to new situations and changing situations. You know, they say that the only constant today in a career is change. And the Master of Management means that you are constantly picking up the ability to adapt to a new situation and thrive in it. I found it was like a hockey stick when I was going through my program. I started off and I was, you know, not terrified of new situations, but, you know, it always made me, I took a little bit to get the lay of the land and then really launched in. But by the end of the program, I was just like, yep, new situation, new normal. All right, let's jump in, figure out what needs to be done and get moving. And that is a real skill set that you do pick up, and one that you'll carry through your entire career.
I think probably I think Shane's, I thought it was better to Shane to go through that first rather than coming through to a bland answer from me. But just to add on one element of it, it is very interesting to see how many students in this degree are working in established industries for the moment, but see themselves as essentially entrepreneurs in the future. So their goal is to eventually, once they get more experience in their chosen profession, in the larger established organization, is they're going to leave that organization and they're going to set up their own business. And they see what they're going to learn throughout the MOM as being not only relevant for what they're going to do immediately after they finish the degree, but completely transferable to the new context of establishing their own business. And all those fundamentals that they've learnt are transferable between those two very diverse, two very different organizational contexts. You know, so we get that a lot. A lot of students who do this degree are specifically doing it for an immediate professional gain or advantage in their chosen careers, but for something also that they definitely intend to do 3, 4, or 5 years down the track, which is essentially set up their own business.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It is that has really been amazing for me. You know, I wouldn't have been able to jump onto my entrepreneurial journey if I didn't have that grounding and that understanding. You know, it would have, maybe I wouldn't have done it. And if I had done it, it definitely would have flopped. But, you know, I was doing the Master of Management and constantly thinking about communications and how we could do that better. And then bringing learnings from the course and in other fields back into what I was doing then, and how I was thinking about the product and public address that I wanted to develop in the future.
Perfect. I think that actually perfectly leads into our next question. So Shane, we've talked a lot about people that are interested in startups or building their own businesses. Could you maybe give 1 or 2 examples of how you applied the knowledge you gained from the Master of Management into a real life project or a particular element of establishing your own business?
Oh, geez, where do I start? Probably the first part. Maybe I'll split this into 2 examples. I think the first one is an example of where I was able to apply it directly and immediately into my role at Cefiani Communications when I was studying the Master of Management. At the time, we didn't have a process or a structure for thinking about how we ran accounts. And so I was able to come in and use some of the finance knowledge that I picked up and apply it in a public relations agency so that we could actually look at the cost structure of delivering the services which the public relations agency delivered. So for the first time, we're actually look at the profitability of individual client accounts, and we're able to increase the profitability of the business by actually giving away a couple of accounts. Because quite a lot of the time when you've got technical experts running businesses who don't have that broad generalist management experience, they don't really think about, the cost of an hour of a consultant's time and how much we're billing for that, and then how that all adds up to be a total. You could end up losing money on an account which is paying you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month just because you're putting so much time into delivering that service. And so I was able to immediately provide a 5% uplift in profitability through that applying the experience of the Master of Management. I think the second thing that I apply, and this is something that I apply constantly, and relates back to a bit of what we've been talking about, is to bring some experience and practices from another field into public address. So, the public address platform is purpose built for media relations, but it draws on a lot of things that I see in marketing, a lot of things that I see in operations and process improvement. The other day, we had to work out the maximum capacity of a system. And, in one of the supply chain subjects, you actually work out how to calculate the maximum capacity of a system based on the number of constraints. And God, I've got to tell you, when you're sitting there and you're counting how many chocolate bars a given system can process, you don't think that you're going to be then applying them in 3 years' time when you're looking at the capacity of a digital system. But digital systems and software have capacity constraints. And so just the other day, I was sitting down and I pulled out my notes and I was like, oh, okay, yep, okay. This is the capacity of the system. This is how we can found the choke point, added a couple of servers, boom, choke point's gone. Well, if my developers listen to this, they'll tell you that there are a few more steps in between those two. But it was actually that way of thinking about a supply chain issue that I brought into a software issue and was able to solve that. And I think that's just, to Dr. Jack's point before about how you continue to apply those skills and apply them in new areas. That's a prime example of how you'll carry some of those skills with you for the rest of your life.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. I've got one last question for you guys. Thank you for hanging around for these. So we know that being a business leader isn't easy. So I'm wondering if we could get from each of you a couple of thoughts or tips on how we can best prepare ourselves and be ready to be a leader, whether that be in our own startup or in an established company.
Maybe Shane, you start.
Okay. I think a tip for, I think what a lot of people, sorry, I'll start that again. The tip that I would give to people who are going on their leadership journey is and this is going to sound really simple, but there's a bit more to it, is to actually remember that as a leader, your prime role is to motivate and move people towards a common goal. A lot of people jump into the entrepreneurial game and software because they're like, I'll build a product and then we'll sell the product and, then I'll be the next Mark Zuckerberg and, and list my company and everyone's happy. But actually, every business and every leadership position is about managing and motivating people. Every day with public address, I'm constantly checking in with my team to make sure we're all moving in the right direction towards the right goal. And every time you might have the same conversation 5 or 10 times with different people in the organization, but you're constantly aligning them towards the same place. And so what I encourage people to do is to just remember that leadership is about people. And if you can help motivate people towards a common goal, then that's the foundations of leadership.
And the thing to remember is that this is what students actually participate in and do during their degree. They get experience in this, even in some of the more conventional courses, in leading teams, leading groups, being designated as a group leader, deciding the strategic direction that this group is going to go with in this particular assignment. Or presentation, whatever it happens to be. So all those types of skills, and students are very much aware of this when they're doing the program, is all designed to complement the formal learning and experiential learning that they do in individual subjects. So when they're actually developing assignments and developing responses to real life situations. And when they're working alongside in the professional practice unit, the real life organizations, that's very much part of that journey of what a business leader is actually doing.
And I'd say that the group work, group work in your undergrad is, let's face it, a pain in the ass. It's, Ben, you're laughing and smiling there as well. It sounds like you've had some good groups in your undergraduate program. And look, it sucks. But the beauty of that Master of Management environment is that you are actually all there to work on management. And, to what Dr. Jack was saying, bringing all of that together in those group assignments and those opportunities to lead and those opportunities to organize and apply your management skills is incredibly valuable. And so, don't let the affair of group work being something which holds you back from undertaking another course of study. It's the group work which actually brings the Master of Management course to life and means that you leave, no matter what your role is outside of the Master of Management program, you leave with some skills and some experience which you can apply in any leadership situation.
Perfect. Thank you very much to both of you for answering. That brings us to the end of our webinar for today. So on behalf of everyone listening and everyone at home, I want to thank Dr. Rob Jack and Shane Allison for joining me today, running through all things Master of Management from the teaching side and the course side, as well as from a previous student's perspective. So thank you very much. A quick reminder to everyone watching that we are having one-on-one personal consultations at the moment. If you want to take part in one of those and speak to someone about your personal questions about the program or anything else about Macquarie University, you can head to the website and book in a consultation at a time that works for you and get your questions answered. So thanks again to everyone watching, and on behalf of the team, thanks for joining us.